Welcome to the Options Save Lives weekly live stream, where we spend an hour each week exploring life-improving topics through a lens of alcohol recovery and the Sinclair method. Every week, we take on a new question, topic, or common challenge to empower people to either build a better relationship with alcohol or to eliminate it completely. Episodes are filmed live on Twitch at twitch.tv/C3 Foundation, and the audience is encouraged to ask questions and engage with the host and guests. The Options Save Lives weekly stream is hosted by Executive Director Jenny Williamson and is produced by the C3 Foundation with the support of R Street Institute and other generous sponsors. For more information about the C3 Foundation or the Sinclair method, visit our website at c3foundation.org. Hello, everyone, and happy Friday. Thank you for tuning in to the Options Save Lives weekly live stream. As always, I am Jenny Williamson, Executive Director at the C3 Foundation, and your host for the next hour. How is everybody today? We're broadcasting live from the C3 Foundation office in Fort Myers, Florida. Love to know where you guys are watching from today, and welcome to everybody. And if you're a first-timer out there on the stream and you're in the chat, go ahead and let us know. Say hi to our little community of our live audience. So this week we're going to do something it's funny, I put in my notes a little bit different, but this is really a lot different. This is a lot different from everything that we've seen so far this season, because as hard as it is to believe, we are halfway through season 2 already. So we're going to take a little mid-season look back at some of the interesting moments from each of our previous 12 episodes in the first half of the season. To be honest, not only is this a look back, but in some ways it was supposed to be a way for us to pause for a moment. Claudia and I have been so incredibly busy in 2022. We just finished writing 2 grants. Both of them were due on Monday. So, it's not common to have a grant with a deadline that falls on a Monday. So having 2 of them that fall on the very same Monday was a little bit hectic, to say the least. But we managed to get them both submitted early, with one going in on Wednesday and the other yesterday morning. I've also been taking a rather intensive grant writing course offered for free through Volunteer Florida. It's 2 90-minute long interactive webinars each week for 6 weeks. It's a great webinar, and I'm learning from other organizations too, but everybody seems to be scheduling their webinars right now. So I've been doing about 4 webinars or calls a week for the last few weeks. So thought this was a pause. But honestly, it seems like we're not pausing very much at all, considering we're also going full speed trying to get our Redefining Recovery TSM conference planned. That is going to be the wrap-up episode of season 2. So we're putting everything together, and it's really been a week. So taking a break and looking back at what we've done instead of trying to overload seemed like a good idea at the time, but we'll see how you guys like it. In addition, I'm also going to preview some of the really exciting things that we have going on coming up in the second season. I have been talking with so many potential guests, and we're down to only a couple slots left. It might turn into the speaker Hunger Games by the time we're done. But I think you guys are going to love what we've got coming up in the second half. So want to say hi to our audience. Hi, Freddie and Mud Force. It's always great to see you each week. And we've got some first-time folks out there, Irene and Karen. And we are so glad to have you here. So usually when I have a guest, I start with like a quick little icebreaker each week. I don't have a guest, so instead of an icebreaker, I gotta ask you guys, have you ever heard the phrase throwing spaghetti at the wall to see if it sticks? I grew up with a different version of this phrase, and it was more like throwing crap at the wall to see what sticks, more like a kind of like a brainstorming technique. You throw all the ideas, good and bad, and whatever ends up sticking, then you start going from there. But during one of my webinars this week, the instructor said throwing spaghetti at the wall to see if it sticks. And I thought that was really weird because I've never known anyone to do that. So I posted something on my Facebook page, and apparently people do that. So my icebreaker to the live audience is, have you guys ever or know anyone who has ever literally thrown spaghetti at the wall to see if it's done? Because I'm absolutely shocked that this is a thing that apparently people are doing. So I'd love to, icebreaker with the audience on that one. Yes, Freddie, it was throwing bleep too. I was just being... I was just toning it down by saying crap. But yes, that is actually how I knew it as well. And we do have a pasta thrower out there. So that it's so interesting to me because I literally had no idea that this was an actual thing that people did. And I'm finding that it's not uncommon. Me personally, I don't deal with sacrificial pasta. I bite it. If it's not done, then I've eaten an incompletely cooked piece of pasta and the rest of it just keeps going. But yeah, I found that really, really interesting because I thought it was just a phrase. I had no idea that people really actually do it. So anyway, so let's go ahead and start in looking at some of the clips from the first half of our season so far. So in our first episode, Claudia helped us kick the season off on Giving Tuesday. And we did a little recap of our Heroes program, which is our monthly giving. And we're creeping up to the 50 that we need for Claudia to start doing Zoom chats with the group. But we're almost there. Our Heroes program, which is just c3foundation.org/heroes, or hero, is it's a great way to give a little bit each month and not have to think about it. But so that was why we started on Giving Tuesday. And then we did a preview of the season, and we'll see how close we've gotten so far to our expectations. Here we go. What has been, in your opinion, the most surprising or meaningful part of doing these videos for people?
Well, the feedback that I receive is sort of echoing exactly what you just said. A lot of people don't have the, let's just call it what it is, the focus to read the substantial amount of material that we've collected over the years. We have amazing resources, but the majority of them are written. So what I'm hearing from people is, wow, I saw the episode with whomever, doctor or Jenny and so-and-so, and it really resonated with me. It hit home. So I'm excited for this season because we already have a very diverse group of people bringing more information to our shows. And I just think it's wonderful to get different perspectives on recovery. Every single recovery is unique, and every person has a vast amount of experience with their clients or patients. So you have, certain doctors that we work with on a regular basis, they have collective experiences that you as the audience need to hear about, because you might find that one nugget of saying, oh my gosh, I'm exactly like Dr. Umhau's patient. That resonates with me, and maybe I should listen to more of Dr. Umhau's stuff. It's interesting. I was talking to a few people about supplements yesterday for a young client of mine, and I referred back to Umhau's talk on fish oil, and it was healing the brain after alcohol use disorder, and all of these things I wouldn't know, you wouldn't know, and the audience wouldn't know unless we continued to have this open conversation about how to treat this in a holistic approach. That is what this is. Recovery is holistic. It's the whole body, mind, and spirit. So it's wonderful to have as much information as possible to put it out there. So I'm excited about having, old faces and new faces back. I think this season is going to be wonderful. I know a couple of people who signed up already, and I'm excited for what they might share.
And okay, so thank you for the sound check. Now I understand why no one answered my question. Um, I'm not used to going from clips and muting myself back to live, and even though I practiced it before going live this morning, apparently I maybe need more coffee. So anyway, what I was saying was we were thrilled to start off the season again with Claudia. She hasn't been on nearly as often as she was in our first season because, as our heroes know from the monthly newsletters, she has been very busy. But she has appeared a few times, and we do expect to have her back again later this season. But how many of you were with us for that first episode? I'll give you guys a moment to either, toss an emoji, a smile in there, or thumbs up or something if you were here for that first episode. I know several of you may have been here for every single episode so far. So another one of my favorite episodes was our second episode when we launched our conference theme reveal. We had Claudia back with us, along with Callie Lux of Workit Health and David Belenke, who is my right hand for all things conference. And we let everybody know about our theme this year, which is Redefining Recovery. So I'm going to go ahead and play you a clip from our second episode.
Yeah, I can hop in. So I think that one of the really reasons that kind of Claudia called out is this separation of addiction from medical treatment and medical care. And for the past 100 years, they've really been seen as two separate issues. So you have recovery, which is it's housed in this moral failing department, right? So if someone is failing, they're in active addiction. If someone is succeeding, they're back on the wagon and working their program. And I think that we don't look at other medical conditions that way. If we looked at diabetes that way, every time someone needed an insulin shot or every time someone with diabetes ate sugar, there's not that moral failing part attached to it. When you go to a doctor with symptoms of, diabetes or high blood pressure, they don't refer you out to get God. They're not like, let's go solve this with a spiritual solution because you're morally bankrupt. I think that we've traditionally done that for addiction. And it's really only in the past few years that the Surgeon General has come out and said addiction is a chronic brain disease. This is changing the way our brains function. And it's that kind of conversation that allows that medical piece back in, and that medical understanding, and gets clinicians involved. Like we have clinicians at Workit that are able to prescribe, the medication that is needed and kind of evaluate people's recovery and their craving level and everything. And that's traditionally just been left out of the conversation. It's really wild to think about these very, very pricey inpatient treatment centers that I went to in my 20s. Didn't have a lot of medical intervention or medical supervision. They had horseback riding and pools and, kind of acting drama out and healing that way. But they really left off the medical piece. And I think that is finally changing because of the results, because people are seeing what an impact getting your cravings under control can have, what an impact naltrexone can have, the Sinclair method, things like that. And so it's finally opening the doors that we really need to open with studies and research about the impact. And I hope with that kind of understanding, the definition changes.
And this time I'm starting back by turning my microphone on. So personally, when Claudia came up with the theme for this year's conference, Redefining Recovery, I feel like it is so integral to what we do, because for those of you who weren't on that episode or haven't watched it on replay yet, we talk about how the definition of recovery was actually changed, and it's no longer based on sobriety. It's no longer based on abstinence. And yet so many in the recovery world still treat harm reduction methods as though it's not a real recovery. So we are really looking forward to holding our conference in June and getting a mix of experts and people who have successfully used the Sinclair method to really address some of the harmful aspects of trying to pigeonhole recovery as a one-size-fits-all option and opportunity, and to really broaden the definition and empower people to understand that you can create your own recovery, and what works for you is valid, even if that means that it's harm reduction or medication assisted, or if sobriety is what you choose, then that's great. There should be no instances where one person is telling another that their form of recovery is invalid. So I can't wait for June to come so that we can have this conference. Our initial speaker lineup should be coming out in about maybe 4 or 5 weeks, I think. And I think it's going to be our best conference yet, in my opinion. So our third episode, we brought on Stuart Fisher. Stuart is the volunteer who has done all of the coding and development for our TSM drink log apps. So we talked a little bit about tracking drinks, and we also talked about standard drinks, as in this clip, and did a walkthrough of the Android version update for our app. So if you're using our drink log and you have questions, one of the best places to go is to actually come back and watch the walkthrough on the full video, and you can find that on our website, among other places. And we also have a group in our Discord that is specifically for app questions and feedback. So here comes the next clip. And
Right.
yet it's so critical that we have this because standard drinks are anything except standard. They are arbitrarily set by each country's health authority, and so they're different. And the same exact bottle of Guinness in the UK has a different number of standard drinks in it than that exact same bottle has in the US or in Australia, and it's all very different. And that's something that our Excel spreadsheet does not account for. And that's why the app is so important, because you don't have to do conversion calculations because the app does it for you. Yeah, we were thrilled to have Stuart come on and detail a lot of the changes and upgrades that he made to our app. He's been working on this for several years now. He basically pulled the project out of a dumpster fire that someone else had put it in. So we couldn't appreciate Stuart anymore, not only for all his work that he does on the app itself, but in addition to the upkeep and revisions, he also is active in the Discord forum, so that he is answering questions in, close to real time often. So again, if you have questions about the app, our Discord is a great place to go for additional questions and insight and feedback if you have suggestions. So definitely join us over there. So our fourth episode, we talked a little bit. It was kind of an informal chat with me and the audience members who were out there. It was a holiday survival guide. Now, even though it was geared toward the holidays, really, a lot of the things, at least I feel this way, those of you who were out there live or watched it on replay, I'd love to have your feedback as well. But I feel like a lot of the techniques that we talked about for getting through the holidays can be translated to other times of the year as well. Times when we're stressed, or when there are large family gatherings or other things that we may not always feel as comfortable doing, and even less so sober or not drinking to excess. So I'll just go ahead and play the clip. If you're on the Sinclair method, a lot of this might because of how much Claudia and I talk about replacing habits that no longer serve you with new, healthier ones. Sorry about that. I accidentally cut out while trying to mute my mic, so I'm going to go ahead and start that over again. If you're on the Sinclair method, a lot of this might sound similar to you because of how much Claudia and I talk about replacing habits that no longer serve you with new, healthier ones. So that's basically what I did. I started looking at pieces of the holiday that really didn't serve me or my mental and emotional health. And then I tried to do things that would just replace them. So for a long time, if I worked a job that was open on the holidays, I would volunteer to take shifts from people who had kids or who had a huge joy for the holidays and really wanted to be with their families. And it was really a win-win. And it was a great excuse to help me disconnect. Being able to say, sorry, I can't come over for a Christmas dinner because I have to work. People accept that. And so they might say, oh, well, that's too bad you have to work. But for me, it was actually a little survival mechanism. Plus, I got to make a little extra cash by picking up extra shifts on a holiday. one of the things that I found was great about that episode was some of the feedback that I also got from the live audience about things that you guys do to really kind of either distance yourself from situations that don't serve you well, and some of the things that you do to replace them, and because they bring you joy. And if anybody is struggling with that, again, even though it was specifically for the holidays, it was full of some really good tips from a lot of it came from the audience to just protect your own mental and emotional health when things are stressful and events come up that seem overwhelming. In our 5th episode, we talked about setting goals that you could keep, but instead of talking about SMART goals, which is one of the favorites for setting goals and achieving them, instead what we talked about was trying to figure out where we are personally or where our loved one might be using the stages of change theory so that the changes that you want to make, you're setting yourself up to be more successful in making sure that they happen. So if you've made any resolutions, if you've made any promises to yourself, think about it for a moment. Is it something that you're really doing for yourself? Are you promising to make the change for you or for someone else? Or is it because society has made you feel as though you must? Maybe you were one of the almost everyone who overindulged in treats over the holiday, and you're already seeing ads and articles for swimwear season and seeing the gym membership commercials. But is that really what you're concerned about? Or is it just social pressure that it's a new year, you should lose weight? Chances are, if you're promising to make a change and it's for someone else, you're probably in pre-contemplation. And if you try to jump right to action, your chance of ultimately failing is pretty high. It's why a slow and steady approach works just so much better. You know, and I know no one ever wants to wait for a loved one to make a change. With alcohol and other addictive substances, every day can carry literal mortal risk. Every day can be wrapped in fear, and it's not easy. But if you focus on the long game, you're likely to have better luck. Patience and understanding are the absolute keys when someone you care about is stuck in the pre-contemplation stage. When we moved into January, we kicked off the month with Mary Reed, who is the Executive Director of Moderation Management. And it was such a wonderful opportunity for us to have Mary on our website, or on our weekly stream, so that she could talk about dry January. And you mentioned sleep, but what other kind of struggles or stumbling blocks do you see that people have to prepare for that can pop up for people trying to do dry January the first time?
Again, the social interactions. Some people are really uncomfortable that they cannot be around anybody that's drinking or around alcohol or have alcohol in the house or socialize at all with their friends because they're not drinking. Luckily, I never had that problem. I knew when I quit for that period that my husband still drank daily, all my friends drank, and I like bars. And so I knew that was going to be part of my recovery. But that is a problem for some. So they feel isolated. Boredom is probably a big thing because, as I said, not only do you not know what to do when you're not drinking, everything's going to feel kind of flat for a while. Drinking enhances our feelings. And so the good feelings and the bad feelings. So it makes everything a little more interesting. And it takes a while to get back to that normal sense of feeling and actually feeling. It's kind of a shock the first time you really laugh when you're not drinking. It's like, it's so different and it feels so good. Or to feel really like joy that's not brought about by drinking. But the other down part of that is that sometimes it's really hard to feel anything. You just feel flat.
One of the things I really enjoyed about talking with Mary in that episode was her candor. Everybody likes to, talk about all of the good benefits of doing dry January or taking a 30-day sobriety period. And very few people take the time to really talk about some of the obstacles that you might encounter along the way. And one of the things that Claudia and I have always really made a point to do is not to sugarcoat things. We don't go out there and say TSM is going to solve all your problems, because we know the Sinclair method isn't that easy. It's so much easier than doing other things, but it does require effort. And taking a dry January or a 30-day sobriety challenge, it takes effort. And there are some things that you can run into that you might struggle with. And in my opinion, it's always easier to get past obstacles when at least they're coming. You know to expect them. You can plan a way around them. You don't get hit with them all of a sudden and wonder, what's wrong with me? Why can't I do this? Everybody else seems to make it sound so easy. We never want to set obstacles up in a way that are going to scare people away from trying, because that's counterproductive. But it's healthy to know that things aren't just, clear sailing sometimes. And so Mary's candor on some of the obstacles and things to plan for when doing a 30-day sobriety period or a month-long challenge like Dry January, if at any time you're thinking about doing a 30-day challenge, I encourage you to go back and watch the Dry January video in its entirety, because I'm sure you'll find something that can assist you along the way, even if it's just to calm your nerves about what you might encounter. So following up Mary Reed, we had Katie Lane from Thrive Alcohol Recovery, and most of you probably already know Katie. And she came on to talk about shifting habits.
But I realized that, we have this coping muscle to be able to cope with life's challenges. And all we need to do in order to kind of get out of that unhelpful cycle of over drinking is strengthen that muscle. Like going to the gym. If you go one time and lift weights, you're not going to really see any difference. You might be a little sore, but the real key to success in building muscle is to do it over and over and over and again. And you don't want to do too much. You don't want to do too little. You want to kind of do just enough to kind of push yourself. And so that's what I have found is like the sweet spot for people is we have to start realizing and believing that, first of all, we have this coping muscle. And that's another thing too, like our beliefs and the thoughts that we tell ourselves, like that's where any change really starts in our mind. Like I have clients sometimes say, I can't imagine not drinking my bottle of wine in the evening. Like I just can't imagine it. And if we're going to change any habits, we have to first start there and like change our thoughts. Like, okay, I can imagine, like maybe I'm not there yet, but I can imagine it. Let me think about what that would look like.
So as you would expect, Katie's episode was one of our most popular, both in terms of live audience and replays. And I mean, Katie is just such a wonder when it comes to talking about the Sinclair method and habits and mindfulness and thinking about the process, and she's got some videos out there that talk about how to avoid self-sabotage. So, you know, if you missed that episode, I definitely encourage you to go back and listen to Katie, but also to seek out some of her other videos as well, because she is a wealth of information and always a wonderful guest to have on the stream. So our 8th episode of the season, we brought in Brian Anderson, also known as the Sober Barkeep, and we talked a little bit about non-alcoholic drinks and reviews and availability and quality and lots of other things. So as we continue to see an ever-widening range of people, including people who are in recovery, people who, for health reasons, either have to reduce or eliminate alcohol completely, people who are sober curious, and even people who still drink regular alcohol, they're all becoming NA enthusiasts. How do you see this impacting this already growing market?
It's going to be interesting. And I pulled this up. You mentioned Dry January. Whistle Pig is one of the biggest producers of rye whiskey in the United States of America, and one of the highest quality. They put this out for Dry January. It's a non-alcoholic rye whiskey, and it's made by one of the biggest producers of alcoholic rye whiskey. This is one we've been kind of waiting to see what happens. You know, you've seen in the beer market, you've seen Bud put out Bud Zero, you've seen Busch puts out the non-alcoholic Busch A. So some of the major beer producers are doing it. They're not doing it on a mass scale, but you're starting to see more and more of those. This is the first that I've seen so far, other than like the Gordons and the gins over in the UK. In the US, this is the first US producer that I've seen that's put out an NA. They kind of did it tongue in cheek. They said they would continue selling it through January, but they've sold out at least twice so far. I think it was much more popular than they ever anticipated. Their packaging is really funny. They are donating to bartender association, because bartenders are hitting dry January. You know, in the holidays, everybody's drinking. All of a sudden in January, it's a big dent. And what's interesting is the market is seeing a dent in January, which means dry January is real in the United States now. And number two, you're seeing somebody like one of the premier rye whiskey producers put an NA out. So I think it's not just going to be a continued explosion of new companies. I think you're going to start seeing some of the traditional companies potentially putting out non-alcoholic versions of their drinks.
One of the great tips that came out of that particular episode would be of good interest for those who happen to be liquor drinkers, who are using the Sinclair method, who are trying to cut down. As more NA options become available for whiskey, vodka, gin, etc., even tequila out there, a great tip is to start mixing the NA in with the regular to cut and substitute down. So instead of doing a double shot of your full-on liquor into your mixed drink, you can cut that down and replace the difference with the NA version and just continue shifting the equation until you're only pouring in the NA version. If you're one of those people who honestly, truly just cannot get past the thought of giving up liquor. But also, it was great to talk about all of the different NA options, because the NA options can help with those social effects where you don't necessarily feel like you want alcohol. You want to stay you want to stay sober, or you want to ensure that you're only having one, but you still have that emotional and mental pull for the social aspect. Having a great NA option, I mean, if you pour an NA beer into a glass, no one can even tell that you're not drinking a regular beer. So if it's something that you're worried about the stigma of, well, how do I tell people that I'm not drinking or that I'm done drinking alcohol for the night? It can actually be a good way around that. So the following week, episode 9, we had Claudia back on, and we talked a bit about supporting loved ones on the Sinclair method. And Claudia and I actually ran out of time because there's just so much that we didn't even get around to talking about on this topic.
I run into that a lot of people who have caretaker burnout, but what they're doing is they're not exploring the fundamental whys with the individual who has this issue with alcohol. So I think it's very hard for someone to logically understand that the way we used to describe it is a woman would say, he's choosing the alcohol over me and the kids. That was the classic refrain. And I have to explain to those people that there is no choice when it comes to this. In the compulsive behavior, choice is eliminated. So let's take choice out of the picture. Are you exploring with the individual why they're doing this in a non-confrontational, loving manner? And that is the difference between taking on all of this person's pain and being angry at the individual for not getting better faster on your timeline, and also by being that martyr who's just doing everything in their power to clean up after the person, take care of the children, take all the responsibility on, but you're still avoiding because you don't understand the difference between a compulsive behavior and what you view as a choice. This is an individual's choice to drink. So once you eliminate the fact that it's not a choice, you say, okay, now it's not a choice. So then that person, the loved one, the caretaker, has to ask themselves, then what is it? What exactly is this driving you to drink? And that's where I think a lot of people skip that step. And this is the most, really, truly the most important step, is why. And not done in an aggressive manner, not an in-your-face manner, but the simple question of saying, why do you feel compelled to drink? And when that feeling comes up, can you describe it to me so I can better understand?
Okay, so as I said, Claudia and I had so much that we still wanted to cover because it is, when you're supporting somebody who's on the Sinclair method, it's scary. And that's understandable. And we know that as loved ones, you want to support your husband or your wife or your child who is using the Sinclair method, or maybe even your parent. But sometimes it's difficult to know how and to know what the strongest ways to do it are, while still ensuring that you are protecting your own mental and emotional health through the process. So, if you have somebody that you care for that is using the Sinclair method, I do encourage you to go back and watch that episode. But we are also going to have Claudia back on in the second half of the season, and we're going to continue talking about ways that you can support yourself and your loved one while your loved one is on the Sinclair method. So our 10th episode of this season, we brought in Michelle Perrone, who is one of our licensed coaches on yoursinclairmethod.com. She is a PhD level addiction professional, and we talked a bit about creating and the importance of a TSM recovery toolbox.
Like about moderation, I believe it's a more humanistic approach to addiction. It's more humanistic because it accounts for, I'm not going to be perfect. I'm not going to be abstinence the rest of my life. Give it up forever and ever. If I'm 21, that's really hard. And if I'm 51, it's hard. And if I'm 61, it's hard, right? So this way I get to take a pill that helps my body, my physiology work with me. But what is it working with? My mindset is, rather than committing to never having a drink as long as I live, I'm committing to keeping track of my drinking, to being mindful about my drinking, to not to going to weddings and occasions, to not get so drunk that I obliterate the occasion, because we're going to make memories. We're not going there to be that woman or that man at the wedding that's doing the bad toast and the embarrassing thing. We're going to the wedding to make memories with the couple and our family, and to enjoy the food and the wine and the dance. Like, we're there to experience a memory, not to obliterate it. So the commitment becomes not that I'm drinking responsibly because I'm at home in my Barco lounge or getting drunk. That's not what this is about. Moderation is about drinking responsibly for my personal welfare, my well-being, and my sense of joy and lightheartedness and physical health. So the commitment and the mindset is, I'm going to do what's best for me. And if best for me one day is not drinking at all, that's fine. And if best for me another day is having 2 or 3 drinks, then that's fine too. But you're not locked into this one commitment forever and ever.
Looking at time, I guess it's a good thing we did this in the middle of the season and not at the end, because we would never fit everything in. Moving on to our 11th episode, we had Bruce Rose from Alcohol Recovery Scotland. And Bruce is another one of those guests that I could talk to all day. He is such a wealth of information, and he came on to talk about the TSM support process.
I'm just saying to them, just keep drinking whatever you're drinking. Yep, everything's fine. Just drink whatever is right. And they'll start saying, well, I should be cutting back. And I said, don't worry about it. I said, just take your pill and drink. And what I'm doing at that stage is I'm spending most of that time explaining to them about TSM. This is how it works. This is what to expect. Week 3 and week 4, it is very, very common for me to get a phone call from the client to say, I need to increase my medication. It's not working anymore. It stopped working. It stopped working. And I said, no. I said, that's normal. I said, you will get this drop. Your brain will very, very quickly adjust to the new level, and you will forget where it was 2 weeks ago. And I said, but it's normal. You don't need to increase your medication. You just stay where you're at. And then from here on in, I heard something in the early days that there's 2 sides to AUD. One side is the craving, your body's physical requirement for alcohol. The other side is the habitual side. And then in Dr. Sinclair's book, not in the Cure for Alcoholism, in page 30 something, I think it is, it shows that the majority of the craving is dealt with after week between 90 and 100 days. So then I suddenly realized, I thought, hang on a minute, if that's the case, then the majority of drinking after that stage is habitual, emotional, psychological. So therefore, people come to me. I was finding it really difficult to work out what is the difference between craving and what is the difference between habit. And so now I realize after week 7 or 8, it's not craving, it's habit. So once we've had that drop, we then start working on, okay, we then go into the drink diary that you made. Thank you very much. So we go into the drink diary, and I'll look at what I'm looking for is the pattern. So what are your patterns? And then we dive into the pattern for stage 2 and say, okay, what time do you have your first drink? Let's start changing that up a little bit. What are you drinking? If you're drinking, you'd call it hard liquor. We call it sort of spirits. If you're drinking hard liquor, are you okay to drink wine? Are you okay to drink beer, lager? Let's get off the hard liquor. So we take them through a very, very structured process. And then stage 2 is all about habit.
So Bruce basically has a 3-level, or as he puts it, stage process for Sinclair method support. So in that first episode a couple weeks ago, he basically talked about stage 1, which is all just when you're first starting in those first couple months of the Sinclair method. And thankfully, he is going to come back in the second part of our season to talk about the rest of the support process, because it's really important. And when you listen to Bruce talk about support, it becomes very evident how beneficial support is while you're on the Sinclair method, because so many people have the same questions. And when you have somebody who's knowledgeable and can tell you that what you're facing, what you're questioning is normal, it can help relieve a lot of the anxiety and fear about whether or not the process is going to work. So if you missed the episode, I encourage you to tune in, and I definitely encourage you to tune in later this season when he returns to talk about the rest of the process. And then for those of you who were here last week, we had on Crystal Fideli of A Way Is Made, and she talked about her personal story and how difficult it was for her to get any kind of help, how difficult it was to even access the Sinclair method, especially as she dealt with so many other issues, including coming out of homelessness, having a small child, and some other things. But her story was amazing because she had to work so hard in order to even get access to recovery tools. And we see it a lot. We see a lot of people who will just say things like, you know, they believe truly that their personal situation is so dire that they cannot even attempt recovery. And not only was Crystal's story powerful in her resilience and her success, but hopefully other people who are in similar situations can see a little bit of themselves and realize that you can recover. We can find a way to help get you where you want to be in life.
You know, and it was really tough because there was a lot of consequences that came to, I guess you could say, my mental health from my childhood. I do have diagnoses of post-traumatic stress disorder. If anybody ever comes up to me, even like my husband, I get so startled, and then I actually feel really bad because I end up startling people because I get startled. But it's just I have PTSD, and then I have a diagnosis of major depressive disorder. So those are, I guess you could say, the other struggles. I've been homeless 3 times in my adulthood. The last time was when I had my 2-month-old. She's now 4. So I'm married now with a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. But when my oldest was 2 months of age, yeah, we were homeless. We're fine now. I mean, we're not wealthy, but we're getting there. Hopefully someday soon. But you know, we're comfortable now. But yeah, those are, you know, the other 2 struggles. And if I may just, you know, share one more point to that, you know, I feel like the approach of our system at present is we have to solve your mental health issues. I don't even know if that's the right way to say that, and then that will make your substance use disorder better. And I actually found I suffered for 8 long years and it wasn't getting better. And then once I was able to find the C3 Foundation, and then I was able to access Ria Health's treatment, you know, the Sinclair method. Once my alcohol use disorder got better, my mental health got so much better, like skyrocketed better. And so, you know, that's not the story for every single person, right? For other people, it is the other way around. But I suspect that since I believe we have a 1% success rate treating alcohol use disorder, please correct me if I'm wrong, but the statistics are terrible. And I just think that our approach is not working in our system. And hence why I've gotten my collection of degrees and why I'm trying to start this organization.
So Crystal's organization is going to help those, especially single mothers who fall into assistance gaps. So the people who don't quite qualify for assistance and yet are running at a complete deficit every single month and unable to make ends meet and unable to access certain treatments. And she's going to be recruiting doctors to come in and work out of her nonprofit to help really open up the doors for people who may not be able to afford the Sinclair method to be able to get treatment in a manner that they deserve, whether they can afford it or not. So that's our season so far. So I'd love to hear what you guys think was your favorite episode so far. And while you guys are putting that into the chat, let me tell you a little bit about the second half, because this week has just been a flurry of activity in getting the second half lineup scheduled. So returning from the first half of the season for the second half is going to be Claudia, Katie, and Bruce. And we love having all three of those speakers with us. Again, Claudia is going to finish up what we were talking about in supporting loved ones. Bruce is going to talk more about stages 2 and 3 of the TSM support process. Off the top of my head, I'm blanking on what Katie's topic is, but it is listed on our main schedule page. We're going to have TSM coaches Samara Ibanez, Claire Kazier, and Danny L. join us, each on their own week, to talk about a variety of topics. We've got TSM providers Brian Noonan of SinclairMethod.org and Dr. John Umhau, who has presented a few times at our previous conferences. And they're both going to join us. Dr. Umhau is going to talk about endorphin boosting activities. So that's something that a lot of people have had questions about throughout the years. So we're really excited to have him come on and talk a bit about those. And then just confirmed this morning, Stephanie Sinclair Lappy, who is Dr. Sinclair's oldest daughter, is going to join us on May 6th. And she's going to talk about her father's work and his legacy and being on the C3 Foundation Board of Directors. So we have so many great guests coming up in the second season, or I'm sorry, I keep calling it the second season. This is the second season, the second half of the second season. And it looks like we are out of time already. So audience, you guys have been wonderful as always. Thanks for spending the last hour looking back at the first half of our season with me. So I do hope to hear what your favorite episodes have been so far, or your favorite topics even. If you came in late or you want to share or watch any of our streams, we're going to have today's video up on our website, as well as all of the rest of our episodes, and they are all available on YouTube, Vimeo, Anchor, and Spotify. And as we're able to, we will get the transcripts and closed captioning added to those files as well. Next week, we're going to be joined by Samara Ibanez, one of our coaches at yoursinclairmethod.com, and we're going to talk a bit about medication adherence, also known as compliance. So start thinking about those questions now, because medication adherence and compliance, whichever terminology you prefer to use, there are always a lot of questions about that. So we'd love to hear your questions and make it as interactive as possible. If you found value in this or any of our broadcasts, we do hope you'll hit the donate button in our profile or head to our website to make a donation at c3foundation.org/donate. You can follow our channel to get broadcast alerts, subscribe to our channel to go ad-free and get some bonus emoji to use. If you're an Amazon Prime member, you can subscribe for free. You can send gift subscriptions to other viewers, cheer, drop bits, host our channel, all the normal Twitch things. If you'd like to suggest a guest or a topic for a future broadcast, even if we don't have room for them this season, we do plan to continue these into the future. So definitely fill out our Google form that drops in our live chat, and it's also on our schedule page, and you can go ahead and make those suggestions. If you're on the Sinclair method and you're looking for more support, or you just want to join the C3 Foundation community, we have you covered on Facebook, Discord, and the Options Save Lives forum. And that's it for today. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Be gentle with yourself and with others, and I will see you again next week right here on Twitch. Bye, everyone. You've been watching the Options Save Lives weekly live stream, hosted by Executive Director Jenny Williamson and produced by the C3 Foundation with the support of R Street Institute and other generous supporters. For more information about the C3 Foundation or the Sinclair Method, visit our website at c3foundation.org. If you have a question you want answered live on air, to make guest suggestions, or to support the show, let us know. You can reach us through our website, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or on Discord. Join us each week as we continue to discuss more ways to help you build a better relationship with alcohol, or to eliminate it completely. Because recovery from alcohol use disorder is not a one-size-fits-all process. Options are available, and options save lives.